In this video, we're going to talk specifically about pedigrees, how to read them, how to understand the symbols, but more importantly in a pedigree, it's really important that we know how to assign a genotype to the symbol, making sure we understand the pattern of inheritance and what's going on. So I think some of you have had pedigrees in middle school, at least you should have at some point. It's okay if you forget, but hopefully it will come back to you. Okay, so let's start up here at the top. So a symbol that represents a female is a circle, and the circle can be open, a circle can be shaded in, a circle can have a dot in it. I'll kind of explain that. A circle could be half shaded. It doesn't matter what side is half shaded, but basically a circle represents a female. And then what symbol represents a male? That would be a square. And then same thing, we can have it open, we can have it shaded, we can have a square with a dot, we can have a square half shaded. You guys kind of get my point. It doesn't matter if the square is a male. And then a carrier. So if you remember from what we talked about with sex-linked traits, really any trait, if it's heterozygous, it would be a carrier. So females, we learn when it's sex-linked recessive, a female can be a carrier, and that's where the dot or the half shaded in. It kind of depends on who creates the worksheet. Both of those represent carriers. Now, a male can be a carrier as long as it's not a sex-linked trait. If it's an autosomal trait, meaning the trait is on chromosomes 1 through 22, then we know that they could be a carrier, because we don't have to worry about X's and Y's. So again, that's where the dot and the half shaded in come into play. So you can see on the worksheet, we're going to go through 4 scenarios. So the first one, let's pretend that the trait is dominant and it's on an autosomal chromosome. So remember, autosomal chromosomes are chromosomes 1 through 22, and we do not have to worry about X's and Y's. Don't worry about X or Y. We just use the allele letters. And the worksheet is even telling us to use the letter H. So honestly, in this case, it doesn't even matter if it's a circle or a square. So a circle shaded in means they have it. When they're shaded in, they means they have it. What do we mean by it? Well, in this case, we mean a dominant autosomal chromosome. So somebody who's shaded in means that they have to have the dominant allele. Now, in this case, this is a female, she could be homozygous or she could be heterozygous. We really don't know. We'd have to look at more parts of the pedigree to try to find out. And then same thing with the male. The male would either be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. We don't know. We just know they have a dominant allele. If they are not shaded in, they do not have it. Remember, it is dominant. So if they don't have it, they have to be homozygous recessive. So in that case, we just have little h, little h. Okay, so let's look at the next one. We're sticking with the dominant theme, but now it's on the X chromosome. So I do have to worry about circles and squares. So in this case, I have a female. She has the dominant characteristic. So again, she is either X big H, or she is X big H, X little h. We're not quite sure which. We would need more information. Now, a male is just XY. So there is no or option for this genotype. We know they are just X big HY. A female who is not shaded in, she would have to be recessive, X little h, and a male would have to be X little hy. They do not have the dominant trait, therefore they have to be recessive. Okay, let's look at the next set of symbols. We added this carrier symbol in here. So now we're going to say the trait is recessive and it's on an autosomal chromosome. If it's autosomal, do I have to worry about X's and Y's? No, I do not. So I don't even have to worry about circles or squares. So somebody that is shaded in means they are homozygous recessive. So little h, I do not add X's and Y's because it is not on the sex chromosomes. It's not on the X chromosome. Here they are carriers. Now in this case, we know a carrier has to be heterozygous. Can a male be a carrier? In this case, yes, because it's autosomal. We are not worrying about his X and Y. We just know he has the possibility of passing that allele on to his offspring. Here they are not shaded in, nor are they marked carriers, so we know that they are dominant. Now, I have to tell you, here's a little caveat to this. I only say this because I've seen this on the biology state test. On the state test in Ohio, I have sometimes seen a pedigree question that does not mark carriers. They're just not shaded in. Most of the time, if they do that, they'll tell you it's recessive autosomal. Okay, they'll tell you what the pattern of inheritance is. So there are some situations where they're not going to be very clear on that. Okay, let's look at the next one down at the bottom. If the trait is recessive and on the X chromosome, then the genotype would be. So I got to worry about X's and Y's. So here we have a circle, so that's a female. So X little h, X little h. A male, shaded in, X little hy. A carrier would be an X big H, X little h. Carrier male, oh wait, we can't have that. Sorry, you can hear my kids upstairs. And then in this case, we have a circle and a square not shaded in at all, so they would have to be dominant. Oops. So X big H, X big H, X big H, Y.